Subscribe to AmpCode and ring the notification bell to get the latest content.
Hello and welcome back. In the previous lectures, we have seen all about the different data solutions in the data warehousing in detail. So this lecture, let's compare our traditional databases as well as the data warehousing solution that you have just discussed. So without further ado, let's get into it. So as you already know that if you are coming from a data background, you should be knowing that what is really a database. It's a storage solution for storing all your structured data. So a database will store the current data which is required to power the application. So let's say if you have a transactions coming into the system, due to its ACID compliance, SQL database or we can say relational database will be the good choice because it will have that integrity, and also for the writing speeds it is truly a good choice for any data solution out there. Then we have the data warehouse. So the data warehouse will store the current data as well as the historical data which requires for many of the analytics processes like the balance sheet reconciliation and so on. And this data could be coming from one or more systems. So this data could be coming from any SQL database, this data could be coming from any files, CSV files for example. So but it has a predefined and a fixed schema that is very important than the other data warehousing solutions. So it will allow the business analyst as well as the data scientist to easily analyze the data because it's stored in the structured way, and you can easily provide a SQL query to get you the expected output. Then we got the data lake, which is the evolved version in the data warehousing solution. So basically a data lake will store the current as well as historic data just like the data warehouses, but the main advantage is it will gather the data from one or more system and in the raw format. So your data could be available in the structured way, or else it could be semi-structured like the JSON documents, or completely unstructured data which is coming maybe from a sensor. So this will allow the business analyst and the data scientist to easily analyze the data as well. So because we will be having like access to all types of data at one place. Let's talk about pair all this solution on the basis of many characteristics out there. So let's say the first one will be the workloads. So basically on the databases it is operational as well as the transactional. So here if you are dealing with the transactional data where the write operations are very crucial and ACID compliance is very important for your use case, then at the time database or any RDBMS or the relational database you can say is a good choice. And if you need any analytical solution where you are going to submit a complex queries on top of your data to get the hidden meaning out of it. So if you are coming from a data analyst background, business analytics background, or the data science background, then data lakes and the data warehouses will be the good choice for you. The only difference will be the type of data it could handle and store. The next one is the data type. So basically databases can only handle the structured data. In some scenarios maybe the semi-structured data which is stored as a JSON document or any other semi-structured format. And also if you talk about the data lakes, then it can handle all types of data. It can handle the structured data, the semi-structured data, as well as the unstructured data which is present in raw format like the images, videos and so on. Also in the data warehousing it can only handle the structured data or the semi-structured data as well in some scenarios. Then if we talk about the schema flexibility, so in terms of the flexibility, we don't have much flexibility if we talk about the databases, because databases is all about the ACID compliance as well as the integrity of the data. So it has a strong and rigid schema depending upon the database type. But in data lake there is no schema definition. You can have unstructured data as well, so that's why it will not require any schema on read operation. Then we have the predefined schema in case of the data warehousing, and it also has a fixed schema definition for the ingestion process, which is like schema on write and the read operations. So that's why there is some integrity you have to maintain if you are using data warehousing in your data solution. Let's talk about some of the few features as some of the more characteristics as well. So if we talk about the data freshness, these databases can only handle like the real-time data and not store the historical data, because most of the times depending upon the type of the database, they will only provide you the vertical scalability, which is not good to store historical data, because there could be like petabytes of data present in your organization. And on the other hand, in terms of data lake, it may not be up to date on the frequency of the ETL process, and same goes to the data warehousing itself. And if you talk about the users, the application developer might need the database at its access, but if you are talking about the analytical purposes or the analytical roles like the business analytics, the application developer as well as the data scientists, so these guys will only need data lake or the data warehouse, because for reading and submitting complex queries to get the hidden patterns out of your data, that task can only be done by the data lake or the data warehouse. It totally depends on what type of data you're handling and what is your end goal. And if you talk about the pros, so let's talk about the pros. So you have like the fast storage solution. So if you are writing so many records in real time into a database, then a relational database is good choice for you. So it will give you the fast queries for storing and updating the data. But if you want to read the data, then it will be the data lake or else the data warehouse, depending upon the type of data that you're handling. So it will give you the easy data storage and simplifies the ingestion of the raw data. So if you have like raw flat files present and you want to ingest it, then data lake will be the good choice for you. And on the other hand, if you talk about the data warehouse, it has this fixed schema which makes working with the data in an easy way, and it's good for business analytics as well, because they will come from a functional side and not have to deal with all type of structures of the data. It will be having a fixed schema and it could be easily accessible with using simple SQL queries. So that's how these are like the pros for each type of the data solution. Let's talk about the cons as well at the end. So if we talk about the cons, then it can have like limited capabilities for analytics, because it only has capability for writing the data as well as updating the rows. So if you are having like the transactional system, then only the database, which is like a relational database or maybe non-relational database in some cases, is useful. But if you talk about like the analytical, and on the other hand for the data lake, it will require efforts for organizing the data, because data lakes can also store the raw format data and it will not maintain the integrity of your data system. So basically it will require some efforts to organize the data and also prepare the data for the use, because it might not be present in the required format. But on the other hand, data warehouse will have like a fixed schema and not much flexible, so it will be like very easy to organize, but it has its cons as well. So it is difficult to design and evolve the schema, because there is not much flexibility to the data warehouse, and scaling compute will require unnecessary scaling of the storage because they're very tightly coupled. So these are some of the cons of all the data solutions which are present. So we have seen the traditional also, which is database, as well as the data warehousing solution, which is nothing but the data lakes and the data warehouses. So I hope you understood it. I'll see you in the next one.
So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next lecture.